Dwayne Johnson, better known as The Rock, at least to some of us, has been sued in a lawsuit alleging that he was part of a kidnapping plot and that he's being sued for $3 billion for allegedly kidnapping a woman and her children. And there are news articles going around from certain websites that are saying that he was fired from the new version of the Moana movie by Disney, and that now he's losing his contracts and business over this, and that this is all because of this kidnapping lawsuit that has been filed against him in New York. I'm Kevin Duper. I'm an attorney at Duper and Covey, and I want to walk you through this lawsuit and what's going on, because I think that while it is true to say that Dwayne The Rock Johnson has been sued for allegedly being involved in a kidnapping lawsuit, it is almost certainly not meritorious. It would be a frivolous lawsuit in my view, and that's from having worked in the court system and seen a lot of lawsuits as part of that. And this lawsuit does look like I think that when you look at it, you will see that it says basically nothing at all about Mr. Johnson's involvement in whatever allegedly occurred here. It is very difficult to kind of parse through what supposedly happened, and there are about 40 pages of other people who are being sued. So when you see these news articles saying that The Rock has been sued for this, yes, that's technically correct, but I can say pretty definitively that I do not believe that the Disney Corporation or anyone would have fired him based on looking at this, given the volume of other people and entities that are being sued. So what is this all about? Who sued The Rock, and what's going on? Why are people saying that this led to him getting fired from Moana? Before I go into the lawsuit, I'm going to show you a few of these articles that you may be coming here if you've seen one of these, and just to show you what people are saying online in some of these news things. This one is from the Animated Times, and it says that Dwayne Johnson has, or that this movie Moana, it's a live action remake of it, that it has suffered a devastating blow amidst a $3 billion kidnapping lawsuit. And there's a couple others. This is one. There's actually a lot of others, but I'm just picking a couple other examples. This one says Disney gives Dwayne Johnson the boot amidst $3 billion kidnapping lawsuit, which would suggest that Disney had intentionally fired him after seeing this lawsuit. And then people, I think if you're reading this article, you would probably think, wow, there must be something to it if Disney fired him. I haven't actually seen any evidence that Disney actually did fire him, other than sort of random news articles that don't seem to know what they're talking about. But we'll get into that in a minute. And this is one thing I've seen it's come up in some of these, which is even more egregious, that says that Dwayne Johnson has been charged after being listed in a $3 billion kidnapping lawsuit. Charged would refer to a criminal charge. That's not something that happens in a lawsuit. If he had been charged, then he would be in jail over this. And that, again, makes this sound extremely serious. And so you're probably wondering, well, what did he do? What is he alleged to have been doing in this lawsuit that makes making all these articles come out? And I think the short answer is they're clickbait. That is completely nonsense. But let's look at who's the person suing him. What is she saying? It's a former professional wrestler, and if you don't know The Rock, or that's his name as a professional wrestler, that's what Dwayne Johnson went as. He sort of played this character where he was he was on what they call Team Corporate. That was they'll get in little wrestling feuds, and so he was pretending to be like the lead enforcer for the I guess they're World Wrestling Entertainment now. They were WWF when I was a kid until the World Wildlife Federation sued them, but that's a separate lawsuit. And so he was like, oh, I'm the bad guy. He's what they call the heel. He would do his eyebrow up. I can't do it, but you can see it in the thumbnail. I can't even approach that, but he called that the corporate eyebrow, and he had a finishing move called the corporate elbow, and he was just all about being team corporate. It's all just sort of an act, whatever. But there's another professional wrestler who's the one who has sued him, which I think has led maybe some people online to think this is part of that. But as we'll see here, they do not actually overlap in terms of when they were at WWE. This is the middle of the Wikipedia page for Dwayne Johnson, and I just want to show you, sort of, because it's kind of important here, the date that he left the WWE. When was the last time he was there? So you can see Final Feuds and Departure 2003 to 2004. And so kind of in this, it's like the early 2004, this is talking about a match that he has at March 14th, 2004. I guess he does a pie eating contest. And then you can see he has a show or something called The People's Elbow. And then after 2004, he ends and starts acting. So sometime in 2004, he quits. Now, this is the person who has named him in the lawsuit. And so he is being sued by her. Her name, this is her professional wrestling name, not her given name, is Rhaka Khan. And so that's what she went by. But you can see that she started in 2005. So to the extent, there can't have been really any significant overlap there between the two of them in terms of actually working there. but even that's really, that's part of this. You can see her real name is Trenesha Biggers. But let's look at the lawsuit itself so you can kind of really see why I think these news stories about The Rock are focusing on him a little oddly to the like when he's not really even talked about in the lawsuit. He is mentioned in it, he is sued in it, but we're going to see a lot of other people being sued in kind of a rather odd way. And I'll explain to you why from my experience as a law clerk. This lawsuit itself, this is what these articles are talking about, or these stories, or whatever you're seeing online. If you're seeing this, so this is actually the complaint in the lawsuit. The complaint is the first document that is filed in any lawsuit. It lays out the allegations and who the defendants are. Now, you may notice something if you've ever watched any of my other videos. You may notice that this does not really look like any of the other complaints that I've showed you in any of these other videos, and there is a reason for that. The thing you will notice right off the top is that it's handwritten, and every other one that I've showed you has been typed, sort of professionally. Why is it handwritten? That's because this Rhaka Khan, Trenesha Biggers, she is what's called a pro se plaintiff, which means she is representing herself. She does not have a lawyer with her in this lawsuit, and when I say that the reason that I think that this is sort of that it is a frivolous lawsuit, at least as to The Rock, and probably as to many of the other people being sued. Part of my experience as a law clerk, and what a law clerk is after you graduate law school and after you're officially an attorney, you don't have to have passed the bar, but you usually take it and then sort of go off and do this clerkship. Clerkship is when you work for a judge. You're sort of inside the system. You're helping the judge process the paperwork that comes through. You're helping them write opinions sometimes. I did it for an appeals court, so I was helping the judge sort of research opinions and do first drafts before he would look at them and decide what to do. Or he kind of already decided what to do usually, but you would write up like based on kind of the instructions, like here's this legal opinion that says what should happen, and then you go back and forth with the judge on drafts, and then you're sort of writing stuff. But so you're seeing a kind of broad selection of like what goes before the court, what is filed in court. And I would say that there's a significant percentage, and by significant, I'd say at least like 5 to 10% of the cases that get filed in any kind of court are by people who have mental illness issues or have some sort of, are, I mean, that's just maybe the way to put it. I think that's, there are a significant number of people who figure out kind of that they can just file stuff and they start doing it. And that becomes like kind of an obsession with some people. And so you see, in terms of volume, it may be repeated, like the same people seem to do it over and over and just keep filing lawsuits. And this looks very much to me like one of the ones that I had seen sometimes where they would be handwritten. They just sort of would not make a ton of sense. And, it's unfortunate. It's not to sort of knock her, or because it does appear that she's had some very rough issues in her life, particularly in relationships, which is what this sort of stems from. But in terms of like, are people telling the truth when they're running around saying that Dwayne Johnson has been fired by Disney and all this stuff about how he's involved in this kidnapping? I don't think that this is true. And the easy way for you to tell that without even sort of really looking at sort of the allegations is even this first page. You'll see something here that says, who's it against, right? Who are the defendants in the lawsuit? So she lists a few of them: the state of Texas, New York ACS, El Paso Child Protective Services, Suffolk County, New York, Shirley Police Department, the NYPD, and then see attached defendant list. So there were so many defendants here that she could sort of even put them on. And I'm going to show you some of these defendants, and I think you will understand when you see this list why it will take us a while to even get to Dwayne Johnson when we go to these defendants, which is why it's a little weird to me that he's kind of been picked out, I guess, in all these news stories. None of them really seem to be like super legitimate publications. They seem to be kind of people, like I said, clickbaiting, but it's just weird that he's been picked out. And it may just be the timing of it, that it fits with this Moana movie, sort of him either deciding not to do it or whether Disney fired him. I don't know what they really did, but I don't think it has. I think the thing to understand, I guess, is it does not seem to be related to this lawsuit. So she wants this injunction, this restraining order. She says, see attached for these defendants. She says the defendants named collectively conspired to kidnap plaintiff and her 2 children from Brighter Tomorrow's domestic violence shelter. And that's part of why I think, there does appear to have been some trauma and stuff going on here. There's some recordings, or a recording online. It's referenced in her Wikipedia. I don't want to really, I will say the Wikipedia is inaccurate it is not correct about the person that this recording is of. So it is kind of false, even information, even in Wikipedia, which maybe is not that surprising. But I'm not going to put it on here because I actually think playing it would probably violate YouTube's policies in terms of being like graphic. And it says plaintiff and her children, MF and ZS, were hunted down after plaintiff filed congressional inquiries regarding military sexual assault and violence. Plaintiff, or Biggers, has been falsely arrested multiple times as a favor to Biggers' ex in an attempt to kidnap her children. And when I say that Wikipedia is inaccurate, what I would say is that there are multiple exes. And so there's some confusion, I think, as to who she's talking about sometimes. It says, if this court does not intervene and grant injunctive relief and a temporary restraining order, the named individuals and agencies will continue to unlawfully conceal Biggers' kidnapped children and continue to deprive Biggers of her life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Furthermore, the actions described in this related 1983 complaint continuous. Law enforcement has been assisting the named individuals and entities in terrorizing Biggers and kidnapping her children. Law enforcement, including the NYPD, ignored Biggers' request to report her children missing. As a result of the named actions, Biggers and her children have suffered irreparable injury. Biggers praised this court grant an ex parte temporary restraining order for the sake of justice and preserve the status quo. And ex parte just means do it without like going and consulting all these defendants, which would actually be impossible because you'll see this defendant list, like who else is she suing, and it will take us a bit to get to the rock because we have the FBI. I won't even list all of them. I don't know if I can. There's several fraternities. Eminem is on here. I don't know who Sheldon Jackler is. A lot of these are professional wrestlers. Some I recognize, like Kurt Angle and Ephraim Sims were former exes of hers. The Bella twins. There appear to be some of these people appear to be professional wrestlers. She's suing Florida Championship Wrestling. She's suing Panda Energy, El Paso Electric, Home Depot, Sports Authority. Chris Benoit is a wrestler. Bank of America, Gap, Doubletree, Southern Illinois University, Universal Studios, SeaWorld is I don't know how they're involved. Delta Airlines, Paula White, Syracuse, I guess the city. Abbott Laboratories, Mac, Tyra Banks, Noam Campbell, Buick, Lincoln, and Enterprise, Hertz, NYU Hospital, Warner Brothers. Now here we get, this is page 5. This is where we see Dwayne Johnson. So now he's, after all these people he's in there. Let's keep going and just show you. IMAX is getting sued up there. A bunch of universities, University of Pennsylvania, Florida, Harley-Davidson, Harvard, Yale, Hanover. I don't know who a lot of these people are. Liberty Insurance, Microsoft, Verizon, Sprint, T-Mobile. 1,000 or 10,000 John or Jane Does at a high school. Victoria's Secret, Visa, Staples, Kinko's, Walgreens, Staples again, Wendy's, McDonald's, the state of Illinois, the state of Connecticut, the United States. See if we get some more. Some of these are repeats now here. Taco Bell again, Chubby's Nightclub, Crunch Fitness, E Entertainment, A&E. Back to these universities again. Again, McDonald's. It looks like some of these are like copy pasted over and over. The Irby, I don't know what that is. The Fraternal Order of Police, VH1. Dentist, it doesn't say who the dentist is. But you can see, I mean, when you're just scrolling through these, right? And I'm just scrolling, there's like Spike Lee, Terry. So one, Dwayne Johnson is not like the focus of this. Like you can see all these kind of other people, but it does not appear that he's really like, he is among this many list. There's Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton and the city of Chicago and these other people. It kind of looks like just someone went in and just started naming El Paso Chihuahuas. I don't even know what that is. But just naming stuff, right? Naming stuff, groups, people, because there's no way all of these are like just literally all of these groups and entities and people and PetSmart and all this stuff. They could not be conspiring to kidnap someone's children. This does not make sense. There's no explanation of why. Here's all more and more and more and more and more. And this goes on for like a long time. There's a question mark by this one, Kevin Dunn. Go to like Lionsgate. They just start. I don't know when this is going to end because it goes for a bit. Here's even more. The Air Force keeps going. Some of this is repeat again. See if we can even get to the end of this. And so if you're wondering, like, is this, when I see a news article saying that Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, has been accused of this, well, that's technically true. But look, and I think I saw even Jimmy Carter was on here when I looked at it earlier. Former president. But so yes, technically true, he has been sued, but so has like 50 pages worth of random. Apparently, it does not appear to have any coherence. And so I don't think that The Rock is really like he's not involved. And it's not really true to like say like, yes, because he's been sued. I do not think the Disney Corporation will go look at this and be like, whoa, we're in trouble. We got to get that guy out of the Moana case. I think this is an unfortunate lawsuit being filed by someone who's gone through or the minimum mental health issues. I don't know that we can really separate out like what's true and what's not out of what's being alleged here. I know she was on the Texas state most wanted list for a while, and I think that's even mentioned here a little bit. But it's really just sort of tragedy kind of issue. It's sad that all the really that we're here, but it's not something that I think needs to be kind of spread around. As if people are saying this, I think you can point them to this video or point them to even the complaint to just see how many are in here. And I can tell you, this is while this will go through the court system, the way this usually works when you get one of these, they do treat it like a regular lawsuit, but that means the court it's going to dismiss this. I mean, that's what's going to happen here is the court will look at this. This will not meet the requirements for a lawsuit to go forward. It certainly will not meet them as to the Rock. The court will look at it. It will write a legal opinion, but I can almost guarantee that it will dismiss this case. It'll give her sort of a chance to argue it, but and that is why, like, you see some of this, like why you see, I think, sort of repeated people who do have mental health issues will get in the court system and just keep filing stuff, is that they do get kind of response, right? I don't know how to kind of put that, I guess, but like the court treats it like it's a real thing, and the court responds to them. And while it does dismiss it, I sometimes feel like they're being heard, I guess, even though what they're saying is kind of out there. And so I do think that maybe is part of why you see that occur kind of repeatedly as like a decent chunk of the cases that are out there. But this one, you can kind of see there's like this long thing that lays out some of these allegations. I went through it. I did not see Dwayne Johnson really anywhere mentioned in this part of it. It's like a typed out thing about sort of everything that's kind of she's alleging has happened. I don't know what if any of this is true. It is alleging like domestic abuse. It's alleging, and it does look like there's been child custody issues. It looks like her former spouses have had substance abuse issues, or their spouse and ex-boyfriend. But so I don't parsing that out from this is difficult or really impossible, I think, to know kind of what the truth of it is, other than to be able to say that for these many entities and these stories going around about The Rock are not true. And she's accusing kind of like the police and everybody of, but not just, it goes through just like kind of a long, like the military's involved in this somehow. I think even to the extent stuff was occurring, it's hard to kind of know, just because it doesn't kind of cohere. It doesn't really, like how do you split out what of this is true and what of this is fantasy and what's what, or if any of it. But you do see that like really gotten into a lot of things where there's been protective orders, there's been arrests, there's been child support, there's been I know at least one of her exes that she's had issues with has publicly acknowledged that he had substance abuse issues during the relationship. I don't want to really say much more than that just because I don't know. You can see she says here she was on this wanted list. There were warrants that were issued for her arrest. But she had a felony warrant for aggravated kidnapping, and she says she was booked into Rikers Island, and just now has some more defendants at the end of this, which maybe where I saw Jimmy Carter down here. Just more general Pat White, public school, just a bunch of stuff. And so that is this lawsuit. That is, I don't know that there is much more to say about that other than like it is pretty, I would say to me, definitively not true that The Rock has been fired over from Moana over this. Can't say that something else isn't going on, but I can say that if you see one of these stories, this lawsuit does not to me look like, at least as to him, that it would have any merit. And I don't think people should be spreading those stories. If you do see them, you should go debunk them and tell people that you don't think it's true. So if you're interested in more videos like this one doesn't really get into too much law because there's not a lot alleged here really when they're done pro se. The actual law part is sort of minimal. But you can hit subscribe and get more videos about random lawsuits against celebrities, get more YouTube law school type stuff where I explain legal concepts and how the legal system works. And there's probably a couple other random crazy celebrity lawsuits going on the in-screen stuff right now that you can go hit on if you're interested.